Henri, you're joining us from BTL. It's a pleasure to have us here. Firstly, do you want to just start by telling us a little bit about what you're doing in BTL?
Yes. Hi. Nice to meet you. And yeah, BTO is a great event. It's kind of like some of the other events at ITB in Berlin, where you gather all of the major tourism boards, hotels, trains, planes from some of the core markets that are directly linked to Portugal.
Mm,
It includes ambassadors, includes ministers, and you allow yourself to promote the products of TAP,
mm.
and are not just the network, but actually the commercial products, the core customer products. And it's a great place to meet and greet and also gather intel, which is also very important because you want to always look to improve your products.
Mm. Yeah, I must say, I think this is my first interview where I've been speaking to somebody on location rather than just in an office. So that's quite exciting. We're here sort of to talk about operations today, and obviously you're
Right.
the best guy to talk to at TAP about that. Um, so we're getting to the point now where aviation is kind of the COVID pandemic and all that is in the rear view mirror now.
Right.
But talk us a little bit about the recovery period for TAP and getting to where we are today.
Well, it was quite a difficult challenge because when the recovery started taking place, many aviation experts didn't really know the direction of travel.
Hmm.
So you had to be cautiously optimistic at the same time of trying to gather intel on where the COVID disease was going to end up. At the same time, there was that conflict that was happening in Eastern Europe. Combined with that, there was lots of micro and macroeconomic issues going on, and we basically had to do our best to understand where we wanted to position ourselves, and we had to, at the same time, restructure
Hmm.
and answer a fundamental question of: are we comfortable that what we're flying is right
Yeah.
today and tomorrow?
Yeah, I can remember speaking to Michael O'Leary right at the start of the pandemic, I think March 2020, and he was telling me, oh, this will all be over by Easter. So it really just shows how much it caught everyone by surprise, and no one really knew where we were going. Sort of moving on a bit, I wanted to talk about the A321 LR, the long range, because
Right.
obviously you guys are flying it and it's an exciting product. So, how is this and why is it essential to TAP's operations?
So the A321LR is an incredible machine because it
Mm,
allows you to fly the economics of a wide body using the economics of a narrow body. And that's important because there are different strategies in network planning that relate to a hub structure, demand, frequency, time of day, that
mm,
all relate back to the customer, which is the most important thing at the end of the day. We're trying to create a customer proposition that allows both us to satisfy the demand needs of the local market, which is Portugal, and also the demand needs of our raison d'être, which is a hub structure.
mm,
And sometimes having big planes can be great, but it's also quite difficult because you're filling twice as much, and you can split that demand into different segmentations, particularly in Lisbon, which is a constrained airport where you don't have, like, let's say in Heathrow, a rolling bank structure.
yeah.
So you need to be more selective on how you kind of use those assets to create the highest return on capital employed at the
Mm,
same time of offering a very good customer proposition, which is competitive and allows you to be seen on all the Expedias and all the Amadeus, and allow you to sell the product so people can get from A to B at the right time, conveniently on the right time of day.
mm,
So the LR is great because it basically gives you nearly the same economics as a wide body. And as you know, we fly the 330-900s.
mm,
And it allows us to basically provide that connectivity to our passengers and also more frequency.
mm,
For example, Newark, we fly double daily to Newark using LRs. Same with Boston.
mm.
Same with, Dulles. We started with an LR, which is much more less risk averse and really allows us to grow the market. And in a sense, it was sort of a 757 replacement.
Mm. And sort of going off the rails a bit here, you just mentioned the 330-900.
Right.
I've seen that a couple of times at Frankfurt actually on that little short hop. But if you were just comparing the two of them, why would it make sense to pick one over the other from your point of view?
Very interesting. You have some markets which are, very long range,
Mm,
such as Chicago, and you can't really fly an LR there. You have other markets where it's good to have both because sometimes during a time of day, you actually have that demand where you can fill wide body no problem, like
mm,
JFK. We also have a lot of cargo. So, you have those routes where you can necessitate yourself to say, listen, I'm going to fly 299 seats. I'm going to get a bit more premium and I'm going to make money doing it.
mm,
And this is the reason why you have to have very good data on an O&D basis, O&D profitability, that you work on day in, day out, that you do dynamic changes to really understand where you can get them. Because the difference with the LR is, the LR doesn't allow you to carry much cargo. And
mm.
cargo can be very helpful for us, particularly on our South American routes. And to New York, where we do carry cargo and we leverage on our cargo partners to,
Mm.
backfill.
And you mentioned some of the LR destinations just now, but are there any more that we can expect to see the long range A321 flying to this summer?
Nothing that's any of a surprise. What we're doing right now is just increasing gently the frequencies on the existing destinations. And that's
Mm,
really important because if you think about what we're doing, we've increased our frequencies on Dallas, we've increased some of our frequencies on northern Brazil. We've increased a little bit of the frequency on Boston. And that's been really critical for us
mm,
because if you think about what we're trying to do, we're trying to fill the gaps and create a seamless product offering for the customer so he doesn't have to remember, God, do they fly Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, or is it Friday? You want to have that. There's the 12 o'clock flight, and I
mm,
need to take that 12 o'clock flight.
mm.
And that's where we go and we use the LR to grow it. And then at one point you start saying, well, I'm doing really well. Should I consider a 330, maybe get some cargo out of it? And you continuously do this dynamic analysis that really lets you hone in on understanding how to improve that return on capital employed on each market.
Mm. And just dialing in on that a bit more, you're saying you're doing this continual analysis of, like A330, A321, cargo, passenger.
Right.
Sort of what is the lead time on, you've got this data and you want to make the change, and you're seeing, oh, we're getting more cargo. How long would it take you to say, oh, we're going to switch this to the 330, say?
It's a good question. I don't think there's a rule of thumb,
Mm,
but typically what you want to do is you want to plan in advance, a year and a half, the season planning. And that's really important. So we're already working on our winter. We've got a first cutout. We're going to start working on summer 24 in about 3 to 6 months. And during that time period, you sit with revenue management, you sit with ops, and you plan through, both the operational needs of manpower planning with, the revenue management guys and their forecasts. You look at all the key KPIs in the world, inflation, fuel, FX, and you're doing your long-term modeling with finance and trying to figure out exactly where you think the world is going to be. And what you're doing systematically is trying to generate that higher ROIC,
mm,
using those assets and deciding where am I better placing those airplanes.
mm.
So, we do that all the time. And we decide upon where the right utilization of those assets are. At the same time, you're also looking at the existing routes and you're continuously asking yourself the question, am I comfortable that what I'm flying is right?
Mm. And so we talked a bit about the past with COVID, and you've just
Right.
mentioned the far future with 2024.
Yeah.
Dialing it back a little bit, what is the sort of focus for your airline throughout the end of this year?
There's quite a few. So, one of the things that we've been doing is ensuring that our right to win and offering a product that ensures that right to win.
Mm,
And the competitive landscape, as you know, is changing. We have to give up some slots as part of the European Commission remedies. So we've got some strong competitive intensity that we're dealing with very well. We've also got, different long haul carriers that are adapting their capacity, and we're very lucky.
mm,
And okay, maybe not lucky, but we're very fortunate that Portugal is a hot market. So if
mm,
you actually look at the capacity versus 2019 on the city pair basis, you can see that Faro, Lisbon, Porto, the islands, they're all at the top of their game versus 19. And Portugal is a hot place. And one of the things that's really important that we've actually relaunched again at the BTO is the stopover program. So a lot of people want to come to Europe, they want to go to Italy, they want to go France, but they also want to come to Portugal. Well, the great thing about our stopover program is you can do both at the same time. And that's really started to create that strength in using the connectivity. And through our partners as well, we're enhancing our product offering. And that's really important because we have all of these open jaw connections that we use. So let me give you an example. You know, when we work with SATA, people want to visit the islands, the Azores. They'll fly Boston via the Azores, go to Porto, take the train down, then pick up the TAP flight Lisbon back to New York, which we fly 3 times a day. And all those open jaw connectivities are, you know, really powerful. And with the 10-day stopover program, we're really measuring now the impact of what that's going to have. So give us another 6 months and we can give you some really good data on where the direction of travel is on it.
Okay, I'll put that in my diary now.
Great.
Just dialing in a bit more on that, you know, you mentioned Faro, you mentioned the Azores, you mentioned Lisbon. Every airline in Europe seems to have a different model. You know, you've got British Airways, Heathrow is central, and they're not so much anywhere else. Lufthansa, they've got Frankfurt and Munich. How does the TAP model differentiate between the different airports in Portugal?
So it's very interesting. We are very much focused. We have all of the Portuguese cities are focus cities for us. First and foremost, they all matter. But as you know from the Alitalia experience, and there's differing views on that, having a hub in multi hubs is a challenging experience. You know, even though, for example, Manchester is a very big city, you don't see British Airways having a multi hub, neither do Air France. So you've got to be selective in the hub, but you need to be focused on each city. So Porto is very important for us. So as you know, for example, another one, the LR, we're going from 2-3 times a week on a 330 to a daily on an LR. And although that's a slight increase in capacity, the demand has been remarkable. So our forward bookings are looking great. And, you know, we also have a very strong core network to Geneva, to Zurich, to Funchal, to some of the other islands. We also fly to Paris and London, double daily. And it works very well for us. And one of the things we've worked on is creating that harmonization of the fleet types so that the product is consistent, not just in the timetable and the schedule, but in the aircraft type as well. And that also helps with the manpower planning, which is very important. We also have a Ponte Aérea. That's the air bridge between Porto and Lisbon. So we have about, I think it's 9 times a day. You forgive me, I'm doing this from memory.
No worries.
You know, we have 350 flights a day. So I don't get it fully right, but you can look it up. The data is readily available. So, you know, we have a very strong bridge between Porto and Lisbon. That's very important to us because Porto is a very strong focus city. We've launched Luanda, Porto, you know, twice a week on the 330. We fly Rio, we fly Sao Paulo. We have a very strong shore haul network. We have the air bridge. And we have a strong mini air bridge as well to Faro. Faro is a bit trickier because, you know, it's a very LCC-centric market, but we do a great job of connecting it to the rest of the network. And if you look at our core routes, every single route has a very strong presence of Faro on it. So we are making sure, and we want to ensure, particularly for the Portuguese people, that we focus on all of these focus cities. And it's the same with the Azores. It's the same with, you know, the islands, Funchal, you know, we make sure we connect, you know, our ex-colonial ties in our colonies anymore, but, you know, linguistic, cultural ties, you know, Cape Verde, Mozambique, Luanda. And I think Porto Newark's going to be a very interesting case study and a success factor to show what the LR can do and how it can help bridge the gap between having a hub and having a focus city. And, you know, you look at Swiss, they did something very similar between Geneva and Zurich.
So darting back a bit off another topic slightly to the A321 LR, it's very it's very sustainable aircraft, and obviously you've got a lot of sustainability targets for this sort of next decade. So how is TAP adapting to these targets and challenges?
TAP is adapting very well. We have one of the youngest fleets in the world. I can't remember, it's close to under 5 years. We just took 2 more LRs. We're taking a third one in July. We're taking a couple of Neos next year. And we have a pretty big stream of Neos. Most of our fleet is either 320/21 Neos, 321 LRs, 330 Neos. And it's not just because they burn less fuel, but they reduce the amount of carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide that's emitted. And that's very important, as you know. I studied Imperial College. One of the things I did was the study of NOx emissions, and NOx is a killer. And it's really important that you don't just reduce fuel, but you reduce the emission types that's coming out of the jet engine as well. So we're very focused on that. We had our first SAF flight, if you know, that flew to the islands using the 321 Neo Retro. That was back in July. It's a very successful flight. So we're working on SAF. We all know it's a challenge because of the amount of SAF you have, but you still need to stay in the game. Also, in the way that you treat sustainability on board. So we're reducing the weight of our aircraft continuously. We announced our new kits. This is our new kits. And if you look at the kits at the back, it's very important. I don't know if you can see that. It's recyclable. And I think it's a beautiful new kit made from the Portuguese products. Very elegant, very stylish, but also even made out of bamboo. We're using all the right products and frameworks to ensure that we're doing all the right things, digitalizing all the magazines. Our office policy as well is very sustainable. It's very important we print as little as possible. Trash cans are limited. We're very focused on digitalization. We limit the amount of electricity we use. Even our light bulbs, they turn on and off, on a movement basis. I think generally the culture in Portugal is it's such a beautiful country. You need to keep it sustainable and clean because we want to keep that tourism growth going, but in a way that allows us to show that we care about the earth.
I was just thinking if I ever got one of your recyclable things, it would not get recycled. It would go straight in my collection. But yeah, I think that's kind of a good place to start wrapping it up. Is there anything else that you'd like to highlight?
TAP has worked hard. The entire teams have worked so hard on the customer service chain. The customer starts his journey from the moment he starts thinking about taking a TAP flight or coming to Portugal, all the way through to thinking about coming back on TAP after he's had his experience. And every part counts, especially service recovery. We all went through a tough time during, the lockdowns, during COVID. And we have to prove ourselves again to the customer that we're worthy of their wanting to come and fly with us. And it's really important that you don't just focus on the network, the strategy, the partnerships. Every single part of this is important. And making it seamless is incredibly important. And that's why, as teams that we've become very close. We've communicated very far. And we're solely focused on the customer. And if you can get that part right, then you can become successful because we have the markets. We have a beautiful country. We have incredible destinations. And we have some great people working for TAP. And we had some great people working for TAP, but we've allowed them the room to do their job better. And that's really important. And that's what our senior management team are focused on. And I think if you think about every part of this customer service train, everything matters to us. And I hope that resonates when the passenger next flies with TAP. And if things go wrong, that they'll appreciate that if you communicate it with us, we'll do something about it. As long as they get to the person and they can be a little bit patient with us. And that's how I'd summarize it.
Okay. Well, I've found this chat to be very informative. So thank you so much for your time today, Henri.
Thank you.
And I hope you have a great rest of your show.
Thank you so much. And I wish you a great day as well.
Thank you very much.
All right. Bye-bye.
In addition to our daily YouTube videos, Simple Flying publishes over 150 articles every week. If you're looking for the latest aviation news and insights,